Luciano realized at the time he could have very well taken control of all the families at that point in time and declared himself capo di tutti capo, the boss of all bosses. He didn't want that. He knew that that wasn't the right way to go. He had he had a business mind, and he saw the mob in many ways as a business. Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is good on this end. Praise God for that. Before I get into anything, I got to thank everybody. This giveaway, it's in the final days now. It's been extremely exciting. We have thousands of people that have entered. The leaderboard is really filled up all the way up to the top. I'm really excited to see who the winners are going to be. And we got great prizes that we're giving away, a year's subscription, signed bottles by me, a whole bunch more. The giveaway has been terrific. But let me also remind you, the store is open, franzesewine.com. We're selling wine in certain states. We're getting our licenses in all the states, but in certain states, people are buying, and the feedback we're getting is great. So you can jump on and you can get some now. You can wait to see if you win in the contest, whatever it might be, but it's great. And thank you so much for participating. The reason we've done this is because of your loyalty, because of your willingness to listen to our content, to watch our content. We really appreciate it, and this is our way of giving back. And we're going to be doing this quite a few times, throughout the course of this whole YouTube promotion and this YouTube platform that we have. So hope you're enjoying it. We certainly are. And again, thank you very much. Jump on franzesewine.com. Get it today. You're going to love it. Sit down with your family and friends and enjoy. And I guarantee it's going to be a great experience. So, what are we going to do today? Lucky Luciano, very, very interesting and very important character in La Cosa Nostra, in the Mafia here in this country. I've spoken about Al Capone. I've given you my opinion. He was the most notorious gangster out of everyone. John Gotti kind of patterned himself, I think, after Al Capone. Very out there, very ostentatious. Everybody knew who he was. Carlo Gambino, just the opposite. Probably the most successful mob boss for over 19 years. He ran his family, and he did it quietly, but very, very, very successfully. And he was the capo di tutti capo, they called him, the boss of all bosses, because he had that much influence. And to me, he was the most successful of his era. Lucky Luciano, if it wasn't for him and his managerial skills, I would say, La Cosa Nostra wouldn't exist like it existed in modern times. Now, some people may say, hey, Mike, you're giving him the credit or the blame for that. Well, it depends on which side you're on. But once again, let me be clear. I am not glorifying that life. This is a history lesson. We're talking about people that were influential in Cosa Nostra. People are interested in that. Listen, I speak all over the world. Audiences come out. We sell out everywhere we go, just about, because people are interested. This is part of history. I don't tell anybody to get involved in the mob. As a matter of fact, I am an outspoken person against that to all of our youth. I want to make that clear all the time, but it is a time in history, and I was a part of that. I have a different perspective. I have an insider's view of it, and people want to hear it, and I want to share it with you all. So let's get that clear. Lucky Luciano, he came here early on. He was born in Sicily. He came into the States early on in his life in the 1900s, and he came into New York. And, he immediately gravitated to the street. He was there doing street crimes. I think he started from the time he was a kid. And at some point in time, he hooked up with Meyer Lansky, Bugsy Siegel. They were close friends. They all came out of New York, and they were friends. And during that time, the real power in that life was two guys, one by the name of Masseria and one by the name of Maranzano. And they were kind of the two, main mob guys at that point in time. They each had their own crews, their own families. I don't know if it was called a family at that point in time. And during that time, they were warring against each other. Remember, prohibition was coming on. There was a lot of gambling issues. They were creating these gambling parlors. Gambling was getting popular here in the States, and the mob controlled it. And I would almost say they invented it here in America. People will argue with that, but I believe that they really made it what it was at that point in time. Again, people wanted to gamble. The mob knew how to fill that vacuum that there was, and they did it very successfully, the same way they did during the time of Prohibition. So Lucky Luciano Luciano, he initially was involved with Masseria, and he was pretty high up in Masseria's crew. And, you know, these guys, Masseria and Maranzano, they were known as Mustache Pete's because they were the old timers in that life. They had their old way of doing things. And again, they were warring among each other all the time, territorial during Prohibition and, you know, for other rackets. They were always warring. And Masseria had some respect for Luciano at that point in time and Luciano's crew. Meyer Lansky, Bugsy Siegel, eventually Costello was involved with that. And at one point in time, I think Masseria started to, you know, get a little nervous about Luciano because he was exercising a lot of power. He was a younger guy, the Young Turks, they called him. He didn't always agree with the way Masseria was running things. And at one point in time, Masseria tried to have him killed. And he beat him up really bad, cut him, beat him up really bad. He was actually left for dead, Luciano was. It was a detective, I think, that found him and actually saved his life. Well, Luciano never forgot that. As a result of that, he kind of gravitated and went over to Maranzano's side, and he plotted to kill Masseria. And eventually he did kill Masseria, and he killed him in grand style. And now he became one of Maranzano's guys. And at some point in time, Maranzano, he declared himself the capo de tutti capo. He was the main guy. And I think the Young Turks, led by Luciano, started to see that, you know what, he's as bad as Masseria was. And they really wanted a clean house. And this had happened, by the way, after the Castellamare War. And what happened during that time was Maranzano and Masseria going to war with one another. And when Luciano orchestrated the killing of Masseria, Maranzano won the war. And at that point in time, Maranzano declared himself capo de tutti capo, the boss of all bosses. He kind of put a stranglehold on Luciano and the other leaders at that time, Bonanno and the other guys, Lucchese also, and Profaci. And Luciano didn't like this. And so he planned to kill Maranzano, and eventually he did do that. And, you know, Luciano realized at the time, you know, he could have very well taken control of all the families at that point in time and declared himself capo de tutti capo, the boss of all bosses. He didn't want that. He knew that that wasn't the right way to go. He had a business mind, and he saw the mob in many ways as a business. So what he did, he created the commission at that time. The 5 families were already created, but he created the commission to be a ruling body over all 5 families, so not any one boss was in charge. And he did this to get equity among all the families, to stop the fighting. He didn't want that. He knew it wasn't good for business, so he created the mob commission where everybody would have a voice. Now, I got to stop at this point. My father and I had a lot of discussion about the commission. I was very interested in it when I became a made member back in '75. And, you know, we realized that the commission really didn't have a lot of power. People might have thought it was, and certainly was the big commission, you know, trial that Giuliani had in 1986, where he put everybody in jail, the bosses of all 5 families and a bunch of other guys at that time. But the commission really didn't have a lot of power because the commission couldn't tell a boss what to do in his own family. A boss of his own family had complete control. Now, he could listen to the commission if he chose to, but he didn't have to. So, you know, I compare the commission to the United Nations. They're a group of people, a group of leaders of every country, but really not any one group can tell any president of another country what he can do in his own country. So even though they had the appearance of power, they didn't really have a lot of power. And some people may dispute that, but in my experience, what I've seen and what I've talked to about some of the other bosses, that's really the way it was. A boss has complete control over his family. Now understand this. A boss can do things within his family that upset, you know, some of the people under him, some of the made guys, some of his capo regimes. I mean, that's why Maranzano got killed, because Luciano said, hey, this guy's not good, he's greedy. In many ways, that's why Castellano got killed. Why? Because Gotti said, hey, we're not going along with this guy, you know. And Gotti believed that there might have been a hit out on him and some of his people. So they acted first. So you can do that within the family. Now, a lot of times, if you're going to do that, if you're going to knock off a boss, you try to get as much support as you possibly can, not only from the soldiers within your family, but from, you know, influence from other families. You'd like to have the commission say, hey, yeah, go and do what you want to do, and we'll back off. You'd rather have that, you know, than the commission being upset. And I can tell you, in the case of Castellano and, you know, Gotti knocking him off, commission, the bosses of other families, they weren't happy about it. I think you know Chin Gigante actually put a hit out on Gotti. Carmine Persico, I know for a fact, wasn't a fan of John Gotti's at all. Persico had his own problems, so he couldn't do anything about anybody. You know, he was, you know, trying to stay out of jail and keep control of his own family at the time. But, you know, Gotti just acted on his own as far as I knew. He didn't really have commission authority over that. So again, but Lucky Luciano's idea was the right one. I don't want to be the boss of all bosses. I'll worry about my own family. And if there's anything that we had to decide, you know, any rules or regulations or any policy among all the families, well, then we'll all get together and decide it. And they did that a couple of times. Yeah, that was definitely, the commission agreed on that. They put a moratorium. The books were closed. That was what they said at the time. And they weren't making any new guys in any of the family. Allegedly for security reasons, the only time they were able to make a guy was if somebody died, another made guy died in another family, then they could replace him. Now, I believe that all 5 families went along with that at the time. At least that's what I was told, and it seemed to be that way. And then the books opened again in 1975. And some people dispute that, say it was 76. It might have even been earlier than 75. They might have snuck a couple of guys in before that. That's what I heard. I don't know for a fact, but they were definitely opened in 1975. That's the year that I got made. And if you remember, Sammy said that I should have got made a little bit later, that I jumped ahead of everybody, but hey, you know, it is what it is, but that was the year that I got made. So Luciano definitely is credited with that. I think he made Cosa Nostra what it is in this country today, the way he organized everything. He had a business mind for it. And you know, until the time of Valachi in the 1960s, when Valachi became the first real informant and gave up everything and said that there were 5 families and he gave the structure and all of that, you know, law enforcement and people really didn't know. Luciano was able to keep things pretty quiet up until that point. I've said this before, that Hoover, head of the FBI, he wouldn't even acknowledge the existence of Mafia Cosa Nostra at that point in time. Again, we had things on Hoover at that time, so that's why he kept it quiet, but he didn't really go out of his way to investigate it. And I told you, the whole thing blew up when Valachi came forward, and later Robert Kennedy started to prosecute the mob, and that's when everything went awry for the Kennedys. So Luciano should be credited with that. And what happened with Luciano? Well, you know, during his time, he was an educated guy. Arnold Rothstein was his mentor. You know, Jewish guy, Jewish mob guy, I would say, racketeer, brilliant guy in his own right. He was great in the gambling business. He was the guy that was credited or blamed for the Black Sox scandal. You know, he fixed the World Series back in 1919. And he became a mentor to Luciano. And I love when I hear that word because, you know, mentor is something I like to do right now. I had a mentor. Mostly it was my dad at the time who educated me about that life. And there were others, you know, that I paid attention to. But even a guy like Lucky Luciano, we all need a mentor in life. No matter who we are, no matter where we start in life, we need somebody to educate us and to guide us, whoever that might be. And his mentor was Arnold Rothstein. He learned a lot from him. He learned a lot about organization. I think Rothstein, Jewish guy, even told him, you know, violence is not good business. You know, you should try to keep this thing as quiet as you possibly can. And Luciano certainly learned from that. Now, unfortunately, Luciano did get, you know, in the crosshairs of law enforcement. A prosecutor by the name of Dewey in New York was the guy that really picked up on Luciano and made it his goal, his vendetta, to put Luciano away. Eventually he did. Luciano, they say, was involved in prostitution. I don't know that for a fact, and the reason I say that is because my father told me that Luciano was framed on that prostitution charge. And he went to trial on that. He was indicted, went to trial, was convicted, and got a horrible sentence for prostitution. It was 30 to 50 years at that point in time. So Luciano now gets convicted. He goes off to jail. They had him in a prison in New York. I'm not sure if it was Attica, one of the prisons there. And during that time, he was obviously fighting for his release. And during that time, you know, we went to war. The United States went to war, World War II. And it was Meyer Lansky that negotiated a deal for Luciano at the time. Luciano had tremendous control in New York. He controlled the seaports, the docks here, and he had a tremendous influence in Italy. And actually, it was Meyer Lansky that brokered a deal between the United States government and Luciano to get him free, or to get him actually deported and get him free if he could help the Allies during the war effort. And in fact, he did. And I believe he was, you know, instrumental in getting 160,000 troops into Sicily and eventually aided in the war effort, aided the United States tremendously. And as a result of that, he won his release. He was deported to Italy, and that's where he had to stay. He was trying to get back to the United States because this is where he wanted to be. Couldn't get back here, but what happened at the time? He went to Cuba. I think this was about 1947. And he was in Cuba for a while, and as you know, before Castro took over, Batista was there, and he was a friend to Meyer Lansky, Lucky Luciano, Bugsy Siegel. We had gambling operations there at the time. And Luciano was there for quite some time, but for some reason the United States didn't want him there either, and he was deported back to Italy and actually resided in Naples until his death. You know, another thing he was able to do during the war effort, he helped at the docks, you know, because the docks were controlled, up until the 80s, the docks were controlled by the mob, by Cosa Nostra, and Luciano had control there also, so he was able to help, you know, the United States during the war effort, even at the docks here in our own country. So, very, very interesting guy. A lot of people call him the father of Cosa Nostra, Mafia in this country. Again, depending upon how you feel about it, that could be a bad thing, that could be a good thing. But you know, people, I always say this. Cosa Nostra in this country is part of history. You can't erase it. You can't make believe it doesn't exist. It's there. And you know, you can't cancel it. If you cancel it and say it never happened, well, you know, what are you really proving? It did happen. It's something we should learn from. It's something maybe you don't want to duplicate it, but you can't make believe it never happened. Same like slavery in this country. It's a horrible thing. Nobody wanted that. It should have been eradicated. Praise God that it was, but it's really something that happened. And to cancel the fact that it happened, not to educate people that this was the wrong way to do things at that time, it's wrong. You don't cancel history because unfortunately a lot of bad things happened in history, but we overcome them. And when we overcome them, we let people know that we overcame them, and that's something that should never happen again. So it should be seen as a triumph when we get over bad things. You don't try to erase it. I don't agree with this cancel culture. You're not canceling the mob. As a matter of fact, I got to tell you, a lot of mob guys on YouTube are doing extremely well. You see it popping up all over. I'm called to speak all over the world, actually. So there's people that are interested in this genre. Again, we don't tell people to get involved in it, but people have an interest in it, and it's part of our history. So really, that's it, for today. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Lucky Luciano, as far as I'm concerned, he's a guy that I would have loved to have met. I think he was one of the elite racketeers. He was definitely one of the elite racketeers in our life, and, certainly a very colorful character. And I think he was one of the guys in that life that did it right. So, that's it for today. Remember the giveaway. Get involved because we're closing it out. Next couple of days, we have thousands of people, which inspired us to give away even more prizes. So that's what we're doing. We're so appreciative of all of you that have come onto this platform and enjoy the content. We get thousands of comments, and I do try to go through as many as I possibly can. But remember, I have a lot of social media platforms. I'm getting bombarded with comments all day, and I really appreciate it. But some of them that I read are just so inspiring and encouraging, and I really thank you for that. And it inspires me and my team to give you the best possible content that we can. So we continue to do that, and it's thanks to you. And like I said, we want to show our appreciation. Again, the wine is available right now. People are buying it, and the feedback we're getting is very encouraging. Again, you take a bottle home, you enjoy it with your families, read the label. It's a great history on the back of this bottle, where the wine has come from. It's a transforming process that wine is involved in, and it's very interesting to me and hopefully to all of you. So that's it for today. How do I always leave you? The same way, people. Be safe, and I really mean that. These are tough times that we're in. Be safe, especially in these cities where the crime rate is rising, and I don't mean to joke about that. I feel terrible about it. I wish there was something I could do. Maybe back in the day we could have controlled the neighborhoods a little better, but the government took that power away from us. But you be safe out there. Be healthy. We're coming out of COVID. A lot of people, thank God, have survived COVID, and I think it's only going to get better and easier from this point. So be safe, be healthy. God bless all of you, because at the end of the day, we need God's blessings totally in our lives. And yes, I will see you next time. Thank you very much. You all take care.